Noor is a hardworking young man who has always wanted to be an adventurer, but due to him being a failure and his ungodly lack of talent, he was only ever able to learn one basic skill: parry. Noor has always been a hard worker. Even as a kid, he would do everything he could to help out his mom since she was really sick at the time. After handing her a cup of water, Noor needs to go feed the goats for the day, so he's going to take them up to the hills. But before he goes, his mom reminds him that he shouldn't go past the rocks that have been laid out, and Noor promises to be careful. He says he will also get some wild rabbits and nuts for dinner, and his mom is happy to have such a good kid. But she knows she isn't going to last much longer, so she calls Noor back to her, and while wiping the dirt from his face, she apologizes for not being able to do anything for him as his mother, but she asks Noor to please live life the way he wants to after she's gone. That night, Noor was making dinner, but as he goes to give his mom some soup, to his horror finds that she has passed on. Noor is deeply saddened by this, but after burying her, he decides to fulfill his mother's final wish and live his life for her sake. Noor doesn't really have any big ambitions, but he works hard to keep up his daily routine. Although it has gotten a lot more lonely in the house. Late at night, Noor is searching the top of his shelf when he accidentally falls over and grabs an old book. This is the same one his father used to read to him back when he was alive about an adventurer and his many outstanding adventures across the lands. Dragon slaying, learning magic, and even dispelling a curse. Remembering these stories gives Noor a new goal to achieve. So for the next day, Noor dumps a lot of hay for the animals to eat while he's gone. And then he visits his parents' graves to tell them that he has found an ambition to strive towards, so he is going to do everything he can to become one. He says his final goodbye to his parents' graves and his childhood home before turning to embark on his adventure and crossing the barrier around his home for the first time. After leaving his home, he spends the night out in the woods, and by the next day, he has finally made it to the big city. He walks up to the city gates to ask about the location of the Adventurers Guild, and the guards are nice enough to point him in the right direction. Noor walks through the gates and is amazed by the sight he sees before him. This is more people than he has ever seen in his entire life, and they are all living in the same place. While walking through the streets, Noor bumps into an adventurer, and his eyes instantly light up even more as he remembers why he came here to begin with. Noor eventually arrives at the Adventurers Guild, and he is ready to make his dream come true. But the only thing standing in his way is the buff receptionist who tells him that he is too young to become an adventurer and should just head home before his parents get worried. However, seeing as both of Noor's parents are 6 feet under, becoming an adventurer is the only thing Noor can aspire to do. The receptionist now understands Noor's situation a bit better, so he goes up to him and says Noor can become an adventurer. Most new adventurers aren't as young as him, but if he really wants to do it, he's not going to stop him. However, the receptionist has one condition. Noor must first go to a training school so that he can acquire some useful skills. It doesn't matter if it's swordsmanship, magic, or archery. Noor just needs to learn a useful skill. Noor is happy that he is being given a chance, so he immediately heads over to the training school to begin learning. As he arrives at the gate, he decides that he will learn swordsmanship since the story from his adventurer book said the adventurer used a sword to slay a dragon in a single swing. Noor begins his training arc, but as he is practicing, a random background character unlocks his hidden potential. Noor sees this and is just motivated to work even harder, but by the time a few months have passed, all the other background characters have unlocked their abilities, and Noor is the only one who can't get anything special to happen. Eventually, the instructor tells Noor that he should stop, but Noor pleads with him for a little more time to practice. However, the instructor tells him that no amount of time is going to get him a sword skill. It's been months of training, and while it's unfortunate, if Noor hasn't gotten a skill by now, then he will likely never get one, so he should stop wasting his time. The only thing he has managed to learn this entire time is how to parry attacks, so the instructor advised Noor to choose a different profession since his talent may lie elsewhere. Noor is disappointed that he can't become a swordsman, but he takes his instructor's advice and goes to a different training school to learn how to become a warrior. But after several months of grueling training, all Noor has been able to accomplish is achieving a slightly better physique than before. The instructor can't let him continue training any further in this profession, otherwise it could become dangerous to his health. Noor still doesn't give up yet and tries becoming a hunter instead, but even that doesn't work as he destroys all the bows he tries to handle. Noor keeps trying various different professions, but no matter what he tries, he is only ever able to learn the weakest skills and is ultimately faced with the reality that he has no talents whatsoever. He returns to the Adventurers Guild to tell the receptionist what happened and the fact that Noor spent 3 months at every training school in the city, yet didn't manage to learn a single profession sounds impossible to him. However, while he feels bad for Noor, he can't let Noor become an adventurer when he doesn't have the skills necessary to survive as one. Noor returns home, having failed to achieve what he set out to do, but even though he knows that he has no talent for adventuring, he is still determined to overcome that by training even harder than before. He carves a practice sword out of wood so that he can begin his new training routine, and while he didn't manage to learn anything professions, he did learn a sword skill at the beginning. So he's going to keep training that skill in hopes that he may eventually unlock a new skill. He vows to train every morning, afternoon, and night, but even after a full year of training, Nor still hasn't managed to acquire a new skill yet. However, he is now able to parry 10 attacks at a time, so he knows he is at least improving a little. 3 years later, Nor's training has improved his parry skill to the point where he can now parry over 100 swords at once, yet he still hasn't gotten any new skills. So he continues training day and night until his sword ends up shattering in his hands. After 10 more years of this training routine, Nor's parry skill has developed to the point that he is now capable of the Mikiri parry and can parry an entire forest with one arm. But even with his godly parry skills, he still hasn't been able to acquire any new skills. At this point, he realizes that no amount of training is going to unlock a new skill for him. So Nor decides to give it one last try and head to the Adventurers Guild to see if he meets their requirements now. But as he gets there and writes down his skills, aside from parry, everything else is pretty much useless. She asks him if these are really all the skills he has, and Nor answers yes. So the receptionist suggests that Nor take a look at the training program so he can get some more useful skills. But Nor tells her that he has already gone to every training school in the city, and he hasn't been able to gain any useful skills in spite of it. The receptionist apologizes, but there is nothing she can do to help him register since his skills don't meet the criteria for registration. Just then, the former receptionist, Turn, who's now the guild master, comes out of the back to see what's going on, and Nor immediately recognizes him. But the man takes a minute to remember who Nor is since grew so big. Once he finally remembers Nor, he sits down with Nor and asks how he has been. So Nor tells him everything he has done since he last met the man, which was literally nothing but training. However, through all that training, Nor was only really able to improve his parry skill a little. The guild master tells Nor that there are different ranks of adventurers, and to become an E-rank adventurer, Nor would need to have at least 2 useful skills. But since he doesn't meet that criterion, he can't become an E-rank adventurer. However, that doesn't mean there is no way for him to become an adventurer, as there is a rank below E-rank, which just requires you to have 2 functioning brain cells. Nor is excited to hear this, but the good master tells him that there are conditions for this rank, meaning he is forbidden from taking on any quests that involve killing monsters or leaving the city to gather items. That restricts him to quests that are basically miscellaneous tasks that no one else wants to do. No one has ever been dumb or desperate enough to agree to become F rank, but there's a first time for everything, as Nor asks the guild master to sign him up for it. The guild master doesn't think it's a good idea, but Nor is so insistent that he caves and gives him an F rank license. Nor is really happy and immediately runs off to complete his first quest by using his physical enhancement to carry a ton of goods for delivery. He also uses the rest of his weak skills to help him in day-to-day quests, and he finds it to be very fulfilling. He has finally achieved his dream of becoming an adventurer and being of use to the people around him, even if it's just F rank. So while he still dreams of being something more than a glorified errand boy, he is happy with what he has. By the next day, we see Nor start the day off by single-handedly clearing out a gutter for an old lady, after which he begins his construction job by carrying a metric ton of cement on his shoulders and making it look like lightweight. So by the end of the day, the construction foreman thanks Nor for all his hard work since they are way ahead of their usual schedule because of him. However, while the foreman is talking, Nor notices something coming from the dungeon behind him, and as he listens closely, he hears a girl screaming for help, and he's not going to act like he didn't hear her. So he starts sprinting to offer his aid. As he enters the dungeon, he finds a girl and her party being attacked by a huge minotaur, but Nor mistakes it for a big cow. He's never seen a cow this big up close, so Nor is stunned as the minotaur begins closing in on the girl and her party. The knights all try their best to defend her, but it's too late to try to escape now. So one of the knights just pushes the princess out of the way, but that results in him getting chopped in half. Nor tries to check on the fallen knight, but with him missing half his body, there's no way he survived that hit. The minotaur continues slaughtering all the knights until the only one left alive is the girl, and she is currently unable to move. So if Nor doesn't do something soon, she will die as well. He picks up a sword and grabs a rock to throw at the minotaur. This gets its attention, so the minotaur charges at him, and as it tries to stab Nor with its horns, Nor performs a perfect parry and sends it flying into a random building in the dungeon. The minotaur gets back up and begins striking at Nor with his axe, so Nor is forced to continuously parry the attacks, because a single direct hit would kill him. Normally, a person would only parry attacks in order to create an opening for a counterattack. However, Nor has no attack skill, so he is stuck on defense. The minotaur suddenly remembers the girl is still alive, so it goes over to finish her off. However, Nor isn't going to let that happen. So he uses his feather step skill to quickly get in front of her and counter the axe strike. This causes his sword to shatter, but that isn't going to stop Nor, since he has made up his mind that even if he can't be an amazing hero, he will always stand to protect the weak. So as the Minotaur attempts to strike again, Nor uses the broken sword to perform a Mikiri counter and sends the Minotaur's axe flying back at it and cutting the Minotaur's head off. Nor is relieved that he managed to win the fight and save the girl, but as she gets up and thanks him, Nor doesn't want to accept any credit for it and leaves without even telling her his name. Nor still thinks of himself as a failure of an adventurer, and he is under the impression that the monster he just fought was just an overgrown cow, so in his mind, if he is still struggling this much with a cow, then he still has a lot of training to do. A while later, a cleanup crew is brought in to move the Minotaur, along with all the people who died fighting it, and Princess Lindbergh feels personally responsible for all their deaths. Just then, her knight Inns rushes up to her and apologizes for not accompanying her when she came out to the dungeon, since it is her job to protect Lyn, but Lyn tells her it's not her fault. This was just meant to be a basic trial for the right to succeed the throne, so it wouldn't have made sense to force her knight to accompany her. Just then, another knight tells Lyn that they need to return to the castle soon, since Lord Rain wants to have a word with her, and she already knows what this is going to be about. Back at the castle, Lord Rain has just finished speaking with Lyn to understand what happened to her, but none of it makes sense to him. The only way a Minotaur could have ended up in that area of the dungeon was if it was magically summoned by someone, and the knight agrees with that assumption. He believes that the cause of the incident has something to do with a merchant who was found dead at the scene with a ring, and upon inspection, it was discovered that the magic stone of the ring has an unusually high level of purity, and that's not something that can be sold on the market normally. A Minotaur is a threat A-level demon, so no random rich guy could buy something that could control one, and the crest on the ring indicates that it originated from the magical empire of Doritos, so Rain believes they were behind this since they've always had beef with him. But even then, the fact that they blatantly attempted to assassinate Lyn and didn't even bother to get rid of the evidence, it must mean they are trying to bait Rain into starting a war, also they can gain control of the dungeon. That aside, Rain also has to think about the guy who saved Lyn, since according to the reports, he was able to defeat the Minotaur in seconds with nothing but a broken sword, and on top of that, the castle spies try to follow him as he was leaving, but he literally vanished before their eyes. Rain can't believe what he's hearing, so he is really interested in figuring out who this mysterious warrior is. Meanwhile, Nord has just returned to the guild, and the guild master is surprised that he is still alive. He heard about a demon appearing in the dungeon, and it was right next to the construction site Nor was working on, so he thought Nor might have gotten himself killed. Nor apologizes for worrying him and explains that he was being followed by some shady people last night, so he had to shake them off and went home without reporting what happened. The guildmaster says Nor is lucky to be alive, since a Minotaur is a demon that is so strong that even an A-rank adventurer would instantly die if they had to face it. Nor still doesn't realize that the guildmaster is talking about the same cow he killed, so he asks what happened to this demon, and the guildmaster tells him it was taken out by some mysterious man. Nor remains oblivious to the fact that he is the mysterious man in question, so he just carries in with a report for the jobs he completed today. The guildmaster gives him his payment, but he reminds Nor that he is better off just getting a regular job since he would get paid more that way, but Nor doesn't care how much money he makes as long as he gets to be an adventurer. Just then, Lyn shows up behind Nor and says she is glad she finally found him. She apologizes for invading his privacy, but she really wanted to meet him again, so she used her long-distance detection skill to find him. Nor assumes she must be a thief-class adventurer if she has a detection skill, but Lyn says she's actually a magician. She just has skills in all the different classes, even if they are only basic. The guildmaster and the other patrons are starting to recognize Lyn, so she asks if she and Nor can talk outside, but before he does, the guildmaster grabs Nor and asks him what he did for Lyn to be talking to him. Nor says he hasn't done anything illegal, meaning he shouldn't be in trouble or anything, so the guildmaster tells him to go with Lyn and to make sure he doesn't do anything dumb. Outside, Lyn conceals herself and Nor with one of her skills so no one can see them, and once they are finally in a secluded spot, Lyn apologizes once more for barging in on Nor when a man with his power would probably be pretty busy. Nor says it's fine, so Lyn begins by thanking him once more for what he did, because not only did he save her life, but he also saved the lives of countless people in the nation. Nor doesn't think he deserves sick high praise since all he did was take down a cow. In fact, he is pretty sure Lyn could have handled it by herself if he hadn't shown up. No idea how he drew that conclusion when he saw several knights get murdered by this same cow, so Lyn tries to make him understand that she would have definitely died if he hadn't come to her rescue. Nor still doesn't think he did much to help her, but he accepts her thanks. However, as Lyn says she wants to offer him a reward to show her gratitude for him helping her out, Mort tells her that a thank you is all he needs, so she doesn't have to give him anything else. Lyn insists on giving Nor a reward, and her father is also asked to meet Noor as well, but Noor seriously doesn't want a reward. Lin tries one more time to get him to accept, but Noor is very firm on his no reward policy. Lin is getting desperate and asks Noor if there is anything she can help him with, or even she could even get him a territory of his own, but Noor just says he doesn't want it. Lin starts crying and tells that Noor has to accept her gratitude, and she's not moving from this spot until Noor says he will accept something from her. Noor remembers a time when he used this same tantrum technique to get a cleric to train him, and since he doesn't want Lin to end up standing here for hours, he ends up agreeing to meet with her father, but he still doesn't want any extravagant gifts. Lin is happy to hear it, so she says Noor should follow close behind her so she can use her concealment skills to make sure no one spots them. Eventually, Noor is brought to Lin's house, and as he is led inside, Lin asks him for his name, which Noor is happy to provide, but Noor still doesn't know who Lin is, so she apologizes for being rude and immediately introduces herself as Lindbergh Clays, but that's a really long name, so she's usually called Lin. After seeing this house, Noor now realizes that Lin wasn't joking when she said her family was wealthy, so it makes sense why the guildmaster was worried about him making a fool of himself. As they are walking, they run into Ains, and Lin is happy to see her, so she runs up to her and asks where her father is. Ains tells her that her father is currently having a meeting with Rain, so he is a little busy now, but that aside, she wants to know who the man standing over there is. Lin explains that Noor is the one who saved her life, so Ains says she will lead them to Lin's father. Noor has never heard of a royal knight, so he assumes Ains must be the family maid, one that really loves wearing armor for some reason. You can also tell that Ains doesn't like him for some reason, but he has no idea why. As they are walking, they come across a dude chilling by the window, and as soon as he notices them, he gets up and asks what Ains is up to, and who this random guy is. Ains tells Gilbert to put his spear away since Noor is Lin's guest, and it is very rude to point weapons at guests. Gilbert realizes that Noor must be the person who saved Lin's life, so he puts his weapon down and Ains asks him to accompany them to the room because she could use all the help she can get. Gilbert now has a bad impression of Noor, and Noor can already tell that things aren't going to end well for him at this rate, but he keeps walking. In the throne room, the king is in the middle of a meeting with Rain, and he is upset because it is clear that Doritas doesn't care about honoring their peace treaty. Rain has been expecting this ever since the last meeting with the king of Doritas, where he demanded that the rights to the dungeon be relinquished to him. The demand was obviously rejected, but ever since then, the king of Doritas has been plotting their downfall. Just then, Lin and the others arrive in the throne room, and Lin excitedly goes over to greet her brother and father. Ains and Gilbert kneel to show their respect for the king, but Noor keeps on walking. Rain notices that Lin is wearing the disguised cloak, meaning she must have gone outside without permission, but she says she had to because there was no other way for her to find the man that saved her. The king realizes that she must be referring to Noor, and Noor apologizes for coming here in such a messy state, but Lin wanted to come here as soon as possible. He also says he isn't an aristocrat or anything, so he isn't aware of the proper etiquette for situations like these, so he may accidentally say something rude, but the king tells him that he's fine with it since it is much easier to speak without having to worry about etiquette. The king extends his hand to Noor and formally thanks him for saving Lin's life. Noor says it's no big deal, so a simple thank you is enough for him, but the king says he can't let Noor go without giving him a decent reward, so he says Noor can ask for any amount of money or land he wants. However, Noor still doesn't want anything. The king is taken aback, but he still raises the reward by offering Noor half of all the treasures they have acquired from the dungeon. Rain thinks a reward like that is too much to be given to a single man, but Noor still doesn't want it though. The king doesn't know what to give Noor since he keeps rejecting everything, so he goes over to his throne and picks up the sword hanging on it as a gift for Noor. Rain doesn't think it's a good idea to give away such a valuable sword, but the king says it's okay since he never uses it anymore and no one would find out as long as he replaces it with a replica. He hands it to Noor, and as soon as it is in Noor's hand, he can feel how heavy it is. From how Rain reacted, Noor can tell that the sword is worth a lot, and he doesn't want to accept any extravagant gifts, but the king says it's just something he picked up while he was still an adventurer, so it's fine for Noor to accept it. Noor agrees to accept it, so the king asks him to give it a test swing. Noor obliges and swings the sword in the air, generating a huge amount of force and surprising everyone around him. The king praises Noor for being able to swing the sword with one hand, but he also has a request to make. He wants Noor to help train Lin on how to be an adventurer, but Noor says there's nothing he could possibly teach someone as talented as Lin, and besides, Noor thinks Lin should be the one to decide something like this for herself. After that, Noor thinks he should probably start heading home, and as he is leaving, he realizes something special about his sword. It is the perfect shape to fit inside the gutters that he usually cleans, so he's going to try it out tomorrow morning. Before he leaves, he's approached by Ains, and she says she wants to talk with him. First, she apologizes for her rude behavior earlier, as it was completely uncalled for, but Noor says he doesn't mind at all. Her job is to protect the Clay's family at any cost, so she is deeply grateful to Noor for saving the life of Lin, and to express her gratitude, she promises to assist Noor if he ever needs help. Noor doesn't want to go back and forth with her about this, so he just accepts her offer and says he will ask her if he ever needs anything. That aside, Inz also warns Noor that he is never allowed to speak to the king so casually again, because even if the king allowed it for now, she will not let such disrespect slide next time. Noor says he understands, so Inz is in a good mood and asks him for his name, and upon hearing that his name is Noor, she seems oddly shocked. Noor asks if he did something wrong again, but Inz says it's nothing and takes her leave. Noor is about to leave as well, but he is stopped by Gilbert, who wants to challenge him to a fight. Rick follows him, but he is exhausted from all the running around today and just wants to head home, so he asks Gilbert what they are supposed to be doing. Just then, Noor realizes that they've arrived at the castle's training room, and Gilbert tells him that he wants to have a mock battle with Noor. Noor hasn't gotten to practice with another person since his days back in the training schools, so he's actually pretty enthusiastic about this. Gilbert walks up to the weapons rack and tells Noor that he's pretty well known in the royal capital, so he wants to see what the hero who saved Lin is capable of in battle. And Noor is happy to accept since he sees it as a great chance to improve his skills. He personally doesn't think he will be able to beat Gilbert, but it's a good opportunity nonetheless, so Noor wants to make the most of it. A small crowd is gathered around them, and they feel sorry for the poor soul who chose to go up against Captain Gilbert. But as the match begins, Gilbert makes the first move, and this poor soul easily dodges it. Gilbert continues to attack, and while Noor is dodging his attacks, he remarks that Gilbert's moves are incredibly precise. He can only imagine the amount of training Gilbert had to do to get himself to this level. There's one thing he can't understand. If Gilbert is such a skilled adventurer, then why are his attacks so slow? Noor has never practiced with another person before, so he assumes that Gilbert must be moving slow intentionally since Noor is a novice adventurer. Noor calls for a timeout and tells Gilbert that he doesn't have to go easy on him that much. And while Gilbert was indeed holding back a little, he agrees to take things up a notch, so he charges at Noor with full force. His attacks are much faster now, but Noor still finds it odd that Gilbert is leaving himself wide open for a counterattack. Noor thinks there's no way Gilbert can possibly be this defenseless against him, so he assumes that Gilbert must be luring him in for a trap. Meanwhile, Gilbert doesn't understand why he can't land a single hit on Noor with his spear, so he tries using one of his signature moves on Noor, but while Noor is surprised, he simply jumps into the air to evade it, and when Gilbert tries to strike him mid-air, he just sucks underneath the attack. None of these attacks have made Noor so much as break a sweat, so he tells Gilbert that it's fine if he speeds up even more since he's been going way too slow. Gilbert's pride is wounded by that statement, and Noor is finally starting to realize that all this solo training might have actually made him strong, but all of a sudden, Gilbert uses his ultimate skill in an attempt to at least land one hit on Noor. But once the dust has settled, Noor has vanished and appears by Gilbert's side, and to Gilbert's surprise, Noor says he gives up. After that, Noor heads home for the day, and he's glad he made it out of there before things hit bad. But back at the training hall, Gilbert's subordinates are busy trying to come up with reasons why Gilbert is definitely still stronger than Noor, even though his ultimate move didn't work. But deep down, Gilbert knows that he lost in every way imaginable. He has had a talent for the spear ever since the first day he picked one up, so there was no one who could stand up to his power. The more he trained, the more powerful his techniques got, and the more strength he gained. But through it all, he felt nothing but boredom since he never found a worthy opponent for himself. He went around the kingdom in search of strong opponents, but after he has already defeated every warrior in this particular village, the village chief apologizes and says there was no one here to match his strength. The chief goes on to tell him that there are rumors going around about the relations between the kingdom and a foreign country collapsing, so they are calling for strong troops to prepare for the likelihood of war. So if Gilbert is lucky, he might end up meeting someone who can give him the challenge that he has been so desperately looking for. Well, Gilbert returned to the capital, and no single troop member was capable of standing up to him, and demon slaying was no longer a fun endeavor for him either, no matter how big the demon was. He was sick of being surrounded by weaklings. One day, while he was relaxing under a tree, his instructor walks up to him and asks why he looks so glum when he has just been crowned the Spear Sovereign. Even with the fancy title, Gilbert is still as bored as ever since he's surrounded by total weaklings. His instructor brings out that Inz is a strong person, and while Gilbert agrees that she is strong, it's more of a different kind of strength. So whenever they have mock battles, Gilbert always ends up being the definitive victor. He thinks things would be a lot more interesting if there were more competent people around like his instructor. and he knows his instructor must be bored as well, especially since he has to train a bunch of rookie adventurers who don't even measure up to the power in his pinky finger. The instructor admits that it is a bit boring, but he is tasked with defending the kingdom, and no matter how strong he is, he can't win an entire war by himself. Besides, he's sure that someday an adventurer will show up that surpasses him in strength. When Gilbert heard about a man who managed to defeat a minotaur by himself, he wanted to meet him personally, but Nor makes no sense at all. He showed no interest in the most lavish gifts the king had to offer, and he was so casual with the king that Gilbert had to respect him for it. While fighting Nor, Gilbert couldn't sense the power necessary to defeat a minotaur, but that doesn't change the fact that Nor was able to dodge all of his moves. Even when he busted out his supersonic spear strike, it still did nothing against Nor, while it would have been a guaranteed death sentence to any other person. On top of that, Nor forfeited the match out of nowhere. Gilbert assumes Nor did it out of courtesy since he didn't want to embarrass him in front of his subordinates. As Nor was leaving, Gilbert noticed a bunch of cracks in the floor and he has no idea how they got here or what Nor did to cause them. But what he does know is that Nor was able to dodge his ultimate attack while he was at full power, so he has finally found truly worth opponent he has been searching for. As Nor walks home, he thinks about how foolish he was to think that he was strong. When Gilbert used his ultimate attack, even after Nor used his physical enhancement and feather step abilities, he was only able to barely evade the strike, and Gilbert must have been holding back just enough to prove a point since there's no way he would actually use a lethal move in a mock battle. He feels thankful to Gilbert for reminding him that he is still weak, so he is going to train even harder from now on. The next morning, Nor is busy with his usual gutter cleaning job and he is using the legendary sword to do it. He is shocked at how well the sword works for this, since the gutters have never been so clean before, and thanks to the sword's durability, it hasn't gotten even slightly scratched after all Nor has done with it. However, once he's done with his gutter cleaning, he is left with nothing to do since his construction job got put on hold because of the incident in the dungeon. Since he is only allowed to accept F-rank jobs, if work in the royal capital ever dries up, there may be entire days that he will have nothing to do, and Nor doesn't want that to happen since his goal is to be useful to people. He considers starting a boat ride business and using the sword as an oar, but then he realizes that he would have to own a boat for that. He considers making pizzas, but then he would need an oven. He finally considers making a grill out of his sword, but that won't work either since he can only make a flame with his fingertips. Just then, Nor hears some rustling in the bushes, so he turns around and finds Lynn standing there. She apologizes for showing up like this, but she couldn't find him at the guild, so she asked the guild master where Nor would be. Nor understands, but he didn't tell the guild master his exact location, so Lynn must have used her tracking abilities to find him. Nor asks why Lynn is here, so she gets straight to the point and tells Nor that she has a special request to ask of him. She wants Nor to accept her as his page, but Nor has never even heard of a page before, so Lynn explains that it is an unpaid assistant who takes care of all of Nor's daily necessities in hopes of gaining some useful knowledge from him. She is fine with just being allowed to hang around Nor, and she promises that she won't cause him any trouble, but Nor still refuses. She asks if she has done something to offend Nor or if he thinks she is unreliable, but Nor tells her that's not the case. She tries to assure him that she can be of use since she has scored the highest marks in all 6 training schools, but her competence isn't the issue here. There's just nothing for Nor to teach her, and he doesn't need her to help him with his work either since he is perfectly capable of doing it on his own. Lynn tries to offer Nor a huge salary if he agrees to be her instructor, but he still doesn't care about money, so Lynn offers to let him use her to do whatever he wants, but Nor turns her down again. He really just doesn't have anything for Lynn to do, but she remains insistent and wants to prove to him that she can be useful. So she takes out her wand and says she is going to demonstrate her competence. She casts an ice spell to fire several icicles at herself, but before she gets hit, she uses a fire spell to destroy them. She tells Nor that this is the highest level of magic she can use, and in addition to that, she has also learned the secret skill of the thief class called Mistblade. She learned it directly from the Sovereign of Shadows, and it's strong enough to easily cut down a tree with one swing. Next up, she wants to show Nor her sword skill, so she sends a divine slash straight towards Nor, but he effortlessly evades. The damage that is done to the tree is proof of how powerful the move is, and it's even got bonus damage when used against undead monsters. She's about to show him more of her skills, but Nor tells her that he has seen enough. Lynn thinks this means he is willing to accept her as his page, but Nor still denies her request. Nor realizes Lynn must think he is someone who is worth studying under, but after seeing everything she is capable of doing, Nor honestly feels inferior compared to her. He tries telling her once more that there's nothing he can teach her, but Lynn takes that to mean that Nor thinks she is too weak to become his student. She asserts that her power has been acknowledged by all the 6 sovereigns, and she is sure she can be useful to Nor in some way if he lets her join him. Nor's point still isn't getting through, so he tells Lin that she possesses many amazing skills, but this is the current limit of Nor's skills. Lin is left speechless and leaves Nor alone for today, but as she is walking home, she recounts the story of a boy with no talent who went through all 6 training schools. People often thought this was nothing more than a made-up legend since most adults would crumble under the pressure of the rigorous training program at one school, let alone complete the courses at all 6. And Lin had thought it was a fake story as well, but she actually got to meet this person. Back when she was studying magic, Oken showed her something interesting about the basic spell Tiny Flame. While the flame created is usually as small as a point, with enough practice, one can make the flame slightly bigger. It had no practical use to him, but he had been alive for 200 years at this point, so practicing the tiny flame became a hobby for him. Since she saw that Lin has made several attempts to make her tiny flame slightly larger, but no matter what she does, it doesn't grow at all. It's something that requires tireless devotion over a long period of time, which is precisely why she was so shocked when Nor was able to create a massive tiny flame many times bigger than what Oken could have ever done, and Oken is the greatest wizard in the world. For Nor's skills to be at such a level means he far outclasses anything Lin could pull off, and it was all done through his own effort. However, all the spells Lin demonstrated were just things she had memorized. Nor had the power to defeat a Minotaur, yet he still lives a regular life without bragging or showboating, so Lin believes Nor is not only strong in body but also in mind. In the near future, she will be in a position to lead this kingdom alongside her brother and father, and the rule of the Clays family is that those with royal blood must be strong, so she wants to learn how to attain strength like Nor's. So if Nor doesn't want to be her instructor, then she's just going to have to stalk him as much necessary until he agrees to train her. Meanwhile, back at the mansion, the prince is complaining to himself because he doesn't understand why his father would gift the Black Blade to a random man of unknown lineage. The sword was acquired back when the king was still an adventurer, and on this particular trip, he was delving into the deepest corners of the dungeon with the 6 sovereigns. And while it was a long and dangerous quest, it eventually led them to locate the prime dungeon treasure. The blade is made of an unknown material that is stronger than anything the kingdom has ever seen, so regardless of the skills and powers that were used to test it, there wasn't even a single scratch on it, so the sword was dubbed an indestructible sword. The biggest question they had about it was how a weapon that's so resilient managed to end up in such bad shape, but those answers will never be found now that the king has given up the sword. But then again, the prince can understand the king's motives since the state of unrest within the kingdom has only gotten worse in recent months, so it is possible that the king is counting on Nor to bring some amount of change. At that same moment, Nor and Lin are out by a food stand, and Nor asks her if it is alright for her to be casually hanging out with him. But she says it's fine since she's acting as an adventurer right now, so she's free to do whatever she wants. In that case, Nor tells her that he was planning on heading to the guild after they've eaten, but he's still not comfortable with the student-slash-stalker relationship he has with Lin. He doesn't think he is someone worthy of being called a teacher, but Lin is following him everywhere. He goes like it's perfectly normal. Nor thinks if he takes on some of his usual errand quests from the guild, then sooner or later Lin should come to understand that Nor is just a regular dude and lose interest, but with how excited she looks to be following him, that doesn't seem likely. After lunch, Nor and Lin head to the guild, but the guildmaster is confused to see Nor casually hanging out with the princess, so he asks Nor what's going on. Lin reminds the guildmaster that while she is here, she is just an adventurer, so he shouldn't call her a princess. Guildmaster apologizes, but now he is even more confused than before, so he asks Nor about it. Nor says it's a really complicated story, but Guildmaster has been doing this job for long enough to know that he doesn't want to get involved in complicated subplots, so he drops the subject and asks Nor if he came here to get another quest. Nor confirms this and asks for one that 2 people can handle, so Guildmaster takes a look at the quests he has available, and since Lin will be joining Nor while she is Silver B rank, Nor now qualifies to take on a goblin hunting quest, which is a total shock to him. Goblin quests are a staple for new adventurers to test their skills, so he is really excited to be allowed to take on such a quest. Guildmaster says that normally Lin would be able to take this quest, or something higher level alone, but since Nor is F rank, this is the best they are allowed to have. Nor is happy to finally be getting a quest that isn't just labor, but he also feels kind of bad since this means he will be taking advantage of Lin's adventurer rank for his own personal gain. And up till now, he has been trying to get Lin to leave him alone, so he doesn't think he deserves to rely on her now. He asks Lin if she's okay with this, since Nor would be using her rank to accept this job, but Lin says it's fine since she is just happy to help in any way she can. Nor is glad to hear she's alright with it, even if he still has reservations about relying on a child, but since it's for the sake of one of his dreams, he is willing to go along with it and picks up his sword to head out. However, Guildmaster hasn't given Nor any information about the quest yet, so Nor has to come back in and ask where exactly he is supposed to be going. After finally approving the quest, Guildmaster points to a map and tells Nor that he and Lyn are meant to head to this area, and they are only allowed to report monsters that they actually caught. The location is known as the Forest of Beasts, and as per guild rules, they need to bring back the right ears of the goblins they slay in order to get compensated. But then again, there have been reports that goblin populations have been dwindling, so in the event they don't manage to find any goblins, they're allowed to bring back some medicinal herbs or something instead. With that settled, Nor and Lyn head to the gatekeepers where their information needs to be reviewed, and after everything is verified, they are both allowed to leave on their quest. A while later, they've arrived in the Forest of Beasts, and this is Nor's first time seeing such dense vegetation, and they are different from the trees he usually sees in the southern forest. While on the topic of things Nor has never seen before, he asks Lyn if she can tell him a bit about goblins, since he would like to know what they are like before he encounters one. Lyn understands and begins telling him about how goblins are monsters that usually hunt small animals and gather fruits for food, but they are also known to attack humans. If left unchecked, their population could easily grow out of control, which is why the guild gives quests like these to help keep the goblin population under control. But goblins are also a valuable part of the forest's ecosystem, so it is best not to hunt them to extinction. Nor is grateful for the information, and he is also impressed with how much knowledge Lyn has about adventuring, but this just means there really isn't anything for him to teach her. As they head deeper into the forest, Lyn uses her search ability to scan for any nearby goblins, but she doesn't find anything nearby. Under normal circumstances, they should have already encountered at least one goblin, but it seems like the rumors about dwindling goblin numbers are true after all. While she didn't find any goblins, Lyn's scan did manage to pick up on a monster-like creature, but it's a bit far away. Since they don't have any other monsters to hunt, Nor agrees to go searching for this unknown monster. They start heading even deeper into the forest, and the further they go, the denser the trees get, giving the area an ominous vibe. This is the kind of location a goblin would love to hang around, but as they are walking, Lyn notices something strange as the presence of the monster they were tracking just disappears all of a sudden. They arrive at the location Lyn had previously sensed the monster, but as far as they can tell, there's nothing here. However, Nor notices a pair of dangling legs floating in the air, so Lyn casts an uncover spell, and it reveals a massive goblin in the middle of the woods. Nor asks what that thing is, and Lyn answers that she thinks it's a goblin, but she probably should have clarified that regular goblins don't have 10-pack abs, since now, Nor thinks all goblins are meant to be this big. The goblin picks up 2 trees to attack them with, and Lyn is absolutely freaking out, but Nor just thinks she's scared because she doesn't have much combat experience. However, the real reason she's freaking out is because that thing is a Goblin Emperor. A Goblin Emperor is a monster created when scientists lock a goblin in a gym with nothing but protein powder and steroids. And on top of already being ridiculously jacked, this one is capable of eating other goblins and ingesting their strength to grow stronger. Nor speaks up and tells her that there's nothing to worry about, since from his limited goblin knowledge, even new adventurers should be able to defeat this thing. And seeing Nor remain so confident gives Lyn the false impression that he must have known about the Goblin Emperor ahead of time, which is why he was so excited to get to eliminate this serious threat. She now has even more respect for Nor than she already did, and since he seems confident in their ability to win this fight, she decides to show a little courage and stand alongside him to fight. The goblin charges towards them, so Nor gets in position and parries all its strikes. The goblin realizes that Nor is too skilled, so it attempts to sweep Nor into a corner to gain the advantage. However, Nor knows what it is trying to do, so he overpowers the goblin, and while it is stun-locked, he instructs Lyn to attack. She fires a wind spell, followed by an icicle barrage, but even with that, the goblin is moving too quickly for her to get a clean shot off on it. Once the goblin stops running, it chucks a huge tree Lyn, but before she gets hit, Nor runs in front of her and blocks the attack. The goblin continues tossing trees at Nor, and eventually it comes up with the idea to overwhelm him by tossing several trees at him from above, and one from the front, so now Nor can't block all of them at once. Luckily, before Nor gets hit, Lyn uses a wind blast spell and blows the trees away while dealing damage to the goblin. Nor thanks her for the help, but as Lyn looks back at the goblin, she is shocked to find that it is healing at an abnormally quick rate. The monostome on its head is probably allowing it to replenish its strength, so at this rate, they are definitely going to run out of stamina before they can defeat it. Just then, Nor comes up with an idea to defeat the goblin, so he asks Lyn to fire a wind blast straight at his back. Lyn thinks that's a crazy idea since one of her wind blasts is strong enough to demolish castle walls, so a direct hit is guaranteed to seriously injure Nor. Yet, Nor still wants to go through with the plan, and besides, he will have his sword at his back, so he won't be taking the hit directly. The only chance they have at winning is to be faster than the goblin, and this is the only plan they've got, so Lin agrees to help. As the goblin is preparing to attack once more, Lin fires a wind blast at Nor and sends him flying forward at incredible speeds. He blacks out for a second, but after regaining consciousness, he uses his physical enhancement to stabilize himself, feather step to evade the monster's tree tosses, and low heel to relieve the stress on his body. This allows him to get close enough to the goblin and strike it cleanly in the forehead, dislodging the Mana Stone. With the Mana Stone removed, it will now be a lot easier to kill the goblin, so Nor asks Lin to finish it off, but since it's in a lot of pain already, he asks her not to make it suffer. Lin agrees, but she then proceeds to burn the goblin to death, and I don't think that counts as a suffering-free death. Thankfully, they are done with their quest for today, but Nor says he's going to refrain from going on any more goblin-slaying quests, since he clearly isn't strong enough to handle mere goblins as he is now. Later that evening, the prince has received news of the Goblin Emperor that Nor and Lin defeated, and he is almost certain that the Magic Empire is behind this somehow. But something that really concerns him is the purity of the Mana Stone that was implanted in the goblin's head. Something like this could only have come from the holy theocracy of Mithra, so they now have to worry about them as well. The prince asks how Lin is doing after the fight, and he is relieved to hear that she only suffered minor wounds despite being up against a monster like that. But according to what Lin told the Secret Corps, the goblin was using his high-level cloaking magic, so it was probably in that forest for at least a couple of days. The prince is surprised that it had a cloaking magic that was imperceptible even to their special forces, but that aside, how the hell did the Magic Empire transport a giant monster like that into the kingdom without anyone noticing? Even if it were done with summoning magic, the kingdom's magic networks should have been able to detect it. He asks if there were any indications that the Goblin Emperor was in the forest, and the Secret Corps mentioned that there was a declining number of regular goblins in the area, which prompted the guild to post jobs to conduct an investigation. And on the off chance that this wasn't an isolated incident, they have gone through the trouble of compiling every strange occurrence that has happened within the past 3 months. The prince thanks them and asks that they keep investigating in case anything else happens so they can report to him, and at the same time, Nor and Lin are reporting to the guild to claim their reward. The guildmaster asks Nor how his first goblin hunt went, and still thinking the Goblin Emperor was a regular goblin. Nor says it was a lot harder than he expected it to be, and if Lin hadn't been there to back him up, he has no idea what he would have done. The guildmaster laughs and assumes that Nor must have been hiding the whole time while Lin did all the work, and Nor is too humble to give himself any credit, so he says Lin was indeed the one who finished it off, but he wishes he had known the red stone on the goblin's forehead would be a weak spot earlier. Guildmaster has no idea what Nor is talking about since regular goblins don't have magic stones on their heads, so he asks if what they fought was really just a goblin. And as far as Nor knows, all goblins are 12 feet tall, so he says it was a normal goblin and Guildmaster takes his word for it. The paperwork is officially complete, so now they just need to provide the proof of the goblin kill. However, that's when they remember that Lin burnt the body to ashes, so there's nothing for them to present as proof. Over in the castle, Prince Rain receives a compiled report of every strange occurrence that has recently occurred in the kingdom, and he is shocked to realize that a lot of these reports are similar to the incident that took place in the Forest of Beasts, meaning the enemy has already infiltrated the kingdom to a large degree. He orders the Secret Service to gather every available member with a search skill and head into the forest to see if they can weed out any intruders. He also wants the 6 sovereigns to be called in to assist as well, since this could be a serious emergency. The Secret Service heads out to fulfill his orders, and Rain can't believe he didn't realize this was going on ahead of time. He has no idea what the Magical Empire might be planning, but he is disgusted that they are willing to put the lives of all the innocent citizens here at risk just because they want the rights to the dungeon. Back to Nor and Lin, they are currently having a bite to eat, and thankfully the Guildmaster was kind enough to give Nor the reward anyway, even though there was no proof. He knows Nor and Lin wouldn't lie about it, and a single goblin isn't worth much anyway, so he saw no harm in it. Nor is glad to have successfully completed his first hunt with Lin, but he's starting to wonder how long she intends to stick around now. It's already evening, so the king must have started getting worried by now. Right on cue, Lin turns to Nor and says she thinks it's around time she heads home for the day, but she'll be back tomorrow to hang around again. Just before she leaves, Rain shows up, but he's not here for Lin. He actually came looking for Nor since he has a request to ask of him. He apologizes for springing this on him so suddenly, but he wants Nor to head to a city in the mountain district tomorrow morning with Lin. He says he will provide a carriage as well as an escort for the trip, and of course, Nor will be well compensated for the trouble. Nor seems to be okay with it, so he agrees to accept Rain's request even though he wasn't given much detail on the mission. But the reason Nor accepted in the first place has nothing to do with the mission, He has just never gotten to ride in a carriage before, so he wanted to see what it's like. As the carriage crosses the landscape, Noor is amazed by all the beautiful scenery since the only places he has ever seen are his home in the capital. However, Lin doesn't seem to be enjoying the ride as much as he is. He asks her if she doesn't like the scenery, but Lin agrees that it's rather beautiful. She just feels bad that Noor was burdened with a request from her brother. Noor tells her she doesn't need to worry about it since he's getting paid well for this, and he still owes her a favor for helping him on the goblin hunt anyway. Before they left, Rain explained the route their carriage would take, saying they would first head towards the mountain district of Tauros, and once there, they would wait a little before proceeding. If nothing strange happens while they are there, then they'll move on and cross the mountain and head to the holy theocracy of Mithra. Noor asked if it was really okay for him to get paid for this if he doesn't have to do anything, and Rain said it was fine, but Noor doing nothing would only happen in the best-case scenario where nothing goes wrong. Lin really hopes everything turns out okay, but even if things do go awry, Ins is here as backup. Ains doesn't want to mention this, but Rain gave her a secret order before they departed. He told her that in the near future, an unprecedented crisis would befall the royal capital, and there isn't much he can do to stop it. So he told Ains that if she were to receive news of the destruction of the royal capital, then she was to flee to Mithra with Noor and Lin. He didn't tell Lin of this plan because he knew that she would surely say she wants to stay and fight for the capital, and he can't allow her to put herself in danger. She thinks it is not a good idea for her to leave the capital as Lin and Noor's escort when they are on the verge of a crisis, but Rain insists that her job is of the utmost importance. She is the only one whom he can entrust Lin to, so he needs her to make sure that Lin remains safe, no matter what. Back to the present, Ains and the others are currently taking a break by a river, and Ains takes a moment to apologize to Noor for getting mixed up in all this trouble. Noor doesn't understand what she means since this is supposed to be a regular trip, and more importantly, he notices that Ains seems to be upset about something, so he asks her if something is bothering her. She just says she is a little worried at the moment, especially with her current escort duties, meaning she has to keep Noor safe as well. Noor tells her she doesn't need to worry about him since he's perfectly capable of defending himself, and if things end up really bad, he would run away if necessary. Ains tells him he won't need to do that, since if things go wrong, she can protect him and Lin with her shield. Noor is surprised that Ains has a shield with her since she doesn't look like she has any equipment on her, so Ains offers to show him her shield and uses her skill to generate a shield of green light in front of her. Noor is even more amazed than before, and Ains tells him that he's free to seek shelter behind it if they find themselves in serious danger. According to what he heard from Lin, Gilbert is supposedly strong enough to bring down a dragon on his own, and Ains is almost equal to him in terms of strength. Meanwhile, Noor thinks he is comparably weak since he can barely handle a goblin. He tells Ains that he thinks she's incredibly talented, but she wouldn't exactly call it talent. She had realized that she had a special power within her back when she was a kid at the orphanage, but she still didn't know what it was. One of her friends saw the glowing light coming from her hand and decided to touch it, but it leads to Ains' friend getting injured. This was incredibly traumatic for Ains, but once the adults found out, they quickly healed the girl and called Ains in to discuss her ability. Ains wasn't in any trouble since what happened was an accident, but the adults were rather interested in her ability, so they asked her to demonstrate it. Ains reluctantly shows them her green light, and they recognize this power to be a gift from the heavens. It is an energy that can take the form of a sword to cut down your foes or a shield to protect those she cares about. It is a versatile power that could even destroy a country depending on how she uses it, so the sovereigns said they would teach her to use her power correctly. Her training was mainly handled by the shield sovereign Dandald, and before long, she was easily able to form a shield that could stop boulders with ease. However, even with the control she had over her powers, an incident with her friend caused her to constantly fear accidentally hurting others, so she purposefully distanced herself from those around her. But on the day she met Noor, she was shocked to realize that she had heard his name somewhere before. While on a mission with Dandald, he had just saved Ains from a giant mantis, but there were still more monsters up ahead, and the soldiers with them were beginning to show signs of fatigue. So Dandald mentioned how he wished someone like Noor was still around. Noor has earned the approval of her adoptive father before she could, so Ains developed a natural jealousy for this person named Noor, despite never having met him before at the time. That's why she was so hostile to Noor when she first met him, and she honestly still feels jealous, but she doesn't want to let her emotions get in the way of the mission since she has to defend Lin at all costs. As they continue to the fields, Noor notices a strange dead patch in the fields, and Lin immediately realizes that something is not right, so she casts an uncover spell and dispel the concealment magic to reveal a giant poisonous frog. Meanwhile, back at the capital, the situation has gotten pretty bad, just like Rain had predicted. Several monsters have been sighted all across the capital, and while the warrior courts are handling it, they don't have enough soldiers to deal with all the monsters. Rain orders for the swordsman troops to block off the road to halt the advancement of the monsters. And while that's done, he wants the Secret Service and the hunters to assist as much as possible. The king is still in disbelief that Doritas could be petty enough to cause this much destruction just because he didn't get what he wanted. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like Doritas will stop with just this either, so the king asks where the 6 sovereigns are. Rain tells him that all 6 of them have been dispatched to various locations due to exceptionally powerful monsters emerging, so they're a bit busy at the moment. With their forces spread out so thin like this, their chances of victory are dwindling by the minute, but at least Rain managed to get Lin to safety in time. Meanwhile, over with Lin and the others, after Lin had cast the Uncover spell, a little boy next to the monster gets attacked. Ain sees the monster and recognizes it as a black death dragon, but upon seeing the monster attack the little boy, Noor doesn't ask any questions and just leaps into action to defend him. As the monster was about to squish the boy, Noor appears in front of him and parries the strike. Meanwhile, Inz asks Lin if she noticed how the boy appeared at the same time as the monster, meaning he was being concealed by the spell as well. And that can only mean one thing. The boy must be Demon Kin. Lin remembers talking about Demon Kin with Rain once, and the summary is that Demon Kin are almost identical to humans, but they have the special ability to form mental bonds with monsters at will, so if anything, they are considered to be closer to monsters than humans and are seen as abominations by most people. There are records which state that Mithril was almost completely wiped out by Demon Kin 200 years ago, and because of this, Demon Kin were extensively hunted by humans until they were thought to have gone extinct. However, there are still some surviving Demon Kin in the world, and due to the course of history and their near extinction, they bear extreme hatred for humans. And since that boy is a Demon Kin, it means he led the monster here in an attempt to attack the capital with it. Ains can't believe Noor would help someone who is clearly an enemy, but whatever the case may be, Lin still thinks they should go help Noor. However, Ains pulls her back and says she won't allow her to help him because it's not safe. While Noor is parrying the attacks of the frog, he realizes that this thing is a lot weaker than the goblin he fought with Lin. So if he can just hold it off until Lin or Ains can get here, killing it should be easy. However, there's one thing Noor failed to anticipate as the frog slits some dark gas in his direction. Normally, Noor would jump out of the way to save himself, but if he did that, then the boy would get hurt, so he decides to parry the gas instead. Unfortunately, this leads to Noor getting poisoned, and the effects are catastrophic for his health. Blood begins seeping out of his mouth and eyes as the poison begins to take effect, and from the amount of damage it has already done, Noor knows for a fact that it must be a fatal poison. He collapses to the ground as he loses strength in his body, and the frog is about to spit out even more poison. So Lin wants to rush over to save him, but Ains stops her, warning that the next cloud of poison will be far larger, so she would only be putting herself in danger. It is Ains' duty to protect Lin at all costs, so if she can at least make sure Lin survives this, then the kingdom can be revived in the worst-case scenario. Besides, one breath from the Black Death Dragon is a guaranteed death sentence, so even if they had the world's greatest healer on standby right now, they still wouldn't be able to save Noor. As the monster spits up another wave of poison, Ains uses her shields to block it, but some poison manages to seep through, so Lin begins using Purify to try and hold it back, but isn't enough. While struggling to hold the poison back, Ains apologizes to Noor for leaving him to die. It goes against her morals to ignore someone on the verge of death in front of her, but she was left with no choice. However, to her surprise, she sees Noor still battling the frog, even with censored blood dripping out of his mouth and eyes. She finally understands why Dandel thought so highly of Noor, and it was because of his indomitable will to protect others no matter the cost. But even if Noor wants to keep going, the poison will eventually claim his life. Soon after, Noor collapses to the ground again, and he can see that he is bleeding a lot, but for some reason he says this is good and it looks like he has a plan to defeat the frog after all. We get a little backstory on the Demon Kin child, and from the day he and all the other so-called cursed children were born, they had been ostracized from the world for their ability to control monsters. They were all locked away in a cell and given disgusting food for their meals. The monster control ability has always been around, and it used to be one that was just used to control livestock, but at some point someone decided to start controlling monsters and use them to fight in a war, so the power has been hated ever since then. While in prison, the boy was given daily beatings for no reason, and upon asking what he did to deserve such cruel treatment, he was just beaten even more until he could hardly be recognized. And on top of that, he was given no food for 3 whole days. After that, he learned to not talk back anymore if he wanted to minimize the pain he would suffer. He was later put on display for the townspeople to insult and attack as they pleased. This was the way demon kin were normally treated, but for the boy it was much worse because he had the ability to read minds, so he could hear all their cruel thoughts at the same time. Once people figured out that he could read minds, they began to hate him in particular, and would be even more violent towards him than usual. But even through all that suffering, the thought of revenge never once crossed his mind. He hated his situation, but he still didn't like the idea of hurting other people. However, one day his captor instructed him to take control of two monsters and use them to attack a neighboring kingdom. He tried to persuade the boy to do it by offering him to reduce his daily beatings to bi-weekly beatings, and he would even throw in some slightly less moldy bread too. But if the boy refused, then he would be treated much worse than he already is. The boy tried to read the mind of his captor to figure out what his plan was, but the man was wearing a magic device that prevented mind reading, so the boy was forced to take his word for it and agree to the deal out of fear for his life and the others like him. That's why he was determined to use the monster to kill the people of the kingdom, but along the way the barrier around him was shattered and he lost focus for a second, so the monster managed to escape his control. And as he tries to regain control, the frog knocks him back and he realizes he has messed up. Because of his failure, the other demon kin are probably going to suffer a lot more than they did before, but while he feels bad for them, he's at least happy that he gets to die without being forced to kill anyone since he never wanted to cause other people pain. He just hopes that if he gets reborn, he won't be treated so badly in his next life. Maybe he could even have a kind family and eat good food, so he closes his eyes and gets ready to embrace death. However, before he could be killed, Nor had stepped in to defend him. The boy couldn't understand why someone from the kingdom would risk their life to save him, and as the frog fired its poison, both Nor and the boy were hit with a heavy dose. However, while Nor had the option of using his basic healing magic on himself to negate the poison, he chose to use it to save the boy instead while he kept fighting. Before long, Nor ended up collapsing due to all the poison in his system, but he is still confident that he can get through this. Nor's confidence comes from a time in his childhood after his mother had died and he had returned to his home. He went out into the forest one day to gather some ingredients for dinner that night, and after spending all day in the forest, he had gathered quite a collection of herbs. He wasn't sure what all the herbs were exactly, but what's the worst that could happen if he just chucks it all into his soup for dinner? This is the worst that could happen. Nor is currently bleeding out on the floor because the soup turned out to be highly poisonous, and with no one around to help him, he was bound to die if he didn't do something to save himself quickly. So he used his low heal ability to try to recover a little. Thankfully, the low heal allowed him to survive till morning, and once he is finally able to stand again, he heads outside to wash his face, and then heads to the library to figure out what he just ate. He realizes that the red herb he brought is called Dragon Ruin, and his mom had even once specifically warned him never to eat it, so he can't believe he made such a stupid mistake. But being poisoned isn't going to be enough to get him to stop working. Nor struggles with all his might to make it outside so he could keep up with his daily training, but the poison had greatly weakened him, so he ends up falling to the ground in pain. He uses low heal once more to try making himself feel better, and to his surprise, he wakes up a hole later after blacking out, and he is feeling a lot better than before. His stomach doesn't hurt anymore, which is a good thing, but he can also now tell that he is incredibly hungry, so he heads back into the forest to find something to eat. As he does this, he is very careful not to pick another Dragon Ruin plant, and while he's definitely not going to make the same mistake again, as he is inspecting the plant, he gets bitten in the ass by a poison spike snake. He manages to punch it to death, but the snake is known to be extremely venomous, so Nor soon collapses to the ground because of it. However, while any ordinary person would have already been dead by now, Nor wakes up a couple hours later and he seems to be perfectly fine once again. He can hardly believe that he survived that, and since he already killed the snake, he decides to take it home and try eating it. He figured that if he was able to survive the snake's bite, then he can't possibly face any negative side effects from getting bitten. And this time he's right, since the poison doesn't have much of an effect on him, and it actually turns out to be quite delicious. The following day, Nor heads out to test his hypothesis, so he finds another poison spike and forces it to bite him so that he can see what happens. And just like he had thought, the venom seems to be spreading through his body a lot slower than it did yesterday, so he believed he had acquired some kind of poison resistance. He was excited since he believed this may be the key to unlocking some kind of new skill, so Nor began intentionally seeking out poisonous things to eat in hopes of gaining a new skill. He would end up collapsing from a poison overdose on occasion, but he would always get back up and keep eating, no matter how much blood he lost in the process. He never did gain any poison-related skills, but through his poisonous meal intake, he ended up really liking the taste of poisonous things. Which is why right now, even though he is being threatened by the monster, he can only think about how good the frog is going to taste after he kills it. The frog tries to squish him, but Nor backflips out of the way in time and gets back on his feet. At first, since the frog's poison is pretty strong, it took a while for Noor's body to naturally counteract it, which is why he collapsed for a second there. But by now, he has had enough time to become totally immune to the frog's poison attacks, so he begins fighting again. As he parries the frog's strikes, Noor ends up destroying all of its claws, and as it tries jumping at him, he parries its face and shatters all its teeth as well. The frog has now realized that it won't be able to handle Noor normally, so it starts charging up a huge poison blast, and Noor assumes this must be the frog's desperate attempt at survival. However, to Noor, it's nothing but a free meal, so before it can release the poison, Noor uses his sword to slam its mouth shut, causing all the poison to build up inside its body and make the frog explode. Noor is glad he managed to defeat it, but he can't help but wonder how such a poisonous frog got all the way out into this field in the first place. But it works out for him since the more poison something has, the more tasty it is for Noor. Just then, he remembers that there's a kid behind him, so he turns around to ask the boy if he is alright. The boy answers that he is fine, but he looks pretty sickly to Noor, so he wants to have Lin properly heal him once they are done here. He asks the boy what he's doing out here, and the boy doesn't want to lie, so he tells Noor that he's the one who brought the frog here, and he did it because he promised that he would get the frog into the city. The gears start turning in Noor's head as he tries to think of an explanation for what the boy just said, and since he is such a fan of poisonous food, he only thinks of the Black Death Dragon as livestock to be eaten, leading him to the conclusion that the boy must be a frog farmer. He also decides that the boy must have been hiding himself in a barrier because he didn't want to get robbed of his deliciously poisonous frog meat. So now, Noor believes he ruined the boy's meat delivery, and he begins apologizing profusely for it. He offers to pay the boy back for the frog meat even if it takes him a couple years, but the boy tells Noor that there's no need for that since it doesn't matter to him. Noor accepts this, but he is still curious as to how a young boy like him managed to get that frog this far in the first place. The boy hesitantly answers that he has the ability to control monsters, so that's what he used to bring the monster here. Noor thinks the boy must have some kind of amazing skill to be able to do that, but the boy clarifies that it's not a skill, rather it's an ability he was born with. The boy also tells Noor that he is a demon kin, but while he was expecting Noor to become hostile towards him, Noor just begins pondering all the things he would do if he had those kinds of powers. For one, he would be able to have animals help him in the fields, he would be able to send messages with birds, and he would never need to worry about getting attacked by a monster at night again. So he kind of wishes he had that ability as well. The boy asks Noor if he really isn't scared of him and his ability, but Noor doesn't see a reason why he should be scared since the boy has an ability that is super useful. The boy is shocked to learn that Noor thinks his ability is useful, so he breaks down in tears because he never believed his life could have such meaning to it. Noor sees a lot of himself in the boy, but he doesn't understand why he has so little self-worth when he has such a great skill. He assumes there must be some extenuating circumstances involved, but he knows the boy will be able to become a great person someday, so he assures the kid that he has a bright future ahead of him. Just then, the others come running over to check on Noor, and Lin wants to begin healing him immediately. But Noor says he is perfectly fine, so she doesn't need to worry. Lin can't believe Noor is actually alright after taking the hit from the Black Death Dragon since the dragon's breath isn't just poisonous, it is an extreme concentration of miasma that would corrupt even the soil, so how on earth could Noor have withstood it? There's only one explanation she can think of, so she recalls how the Saint Sovereign once showed her a technique known as Sacred Spirit. It is one that is achieved by honing the body and mind, and once perfected, it can be used to negate all forms of corruption and purify everything the user touches. It took Saint Sane 40 years to acquire, yet Noor achieved it in less than half the time, and he doesn't even realize it. Noor then asks Lin if she could heal his new friend here, but the boy says he doesn't need any healing either since he is perfectly unharmed. After getting one look at him, Lin can immediately tell that the boy is demon kin, but Noor doesn't see why that should be a problem, so he was hoping they would allow the boy to join them in the carriage so they can give him a ride. From what Lin knows, demon kin are a terrifying race that most countries would recommend killing on sight, so she asks Noor if he is really okay with bringing the boy with them, even after he brought a monster and caused a disaster like this. Noor admits that it's unfortunate that the field got destroyed, but feels like he should help the kid out since he killed the poisoned frog he worked so hard to bring here. By the way, Noor remembers the boy saying he promised someone that he would bring the frog here, but who exactly was this person? The boy tells him that he isn't sure since they never let him get that information, and Inns can tell that he isn't lying. Furthermore, by the state of his body and the way he acts, Inns can tell that he must have been a slave wherever he came from. Slavery is outlawed in the Kingdom of Clays, but the same can't be said about the other countries, so she realizes that the boy was probably forced to do this. She asks him if she remembers the way back to where he came from, but the boy was blindfolded before getting dropped off in the middle of nowhere and being told to head in this direction. Lynn now realizes she may have misjudged the boy, so she asks Inns if they can take Rollo on their journey after all. But there's one major problem with that idea, and it's the fact that demon kin are banned from entering Mithra at all. So if they try to take the Rollo there, it may be seen as enemies. Just then, they hear a voice from behind them, and they see a man standing there who is surprised because he expected Rollo to have died already. The man also notices that Rollo messed up his job of delivering the frog, and since he seems to know about the delivery, Nor asks the man if he is the one who ordered Rollo to do this. The man says it wasn't him. He is just someone who was hired to take out Rollo and aid the progress of the mission. He asks Nord if he is the one who killed the frog, and Nord confirms that it was him, and he apologizes since he still thinks the frog was meant to be eaten. But the man tells him that he doesn't care about the frog, he was just hired to get Rollo. Nor misunderstands this to mean that the man is here to pick up Rollo, and he's not wrong, but the man's intentions are nowhere near innocent. In the next moment, the man disappears and appears behind the group. Nor parries his attack, but he is confused as to why the man attacked out of nowhere, and the man realizes that Nor isn't going to be an easy opponent to beat, so he takes a step back and calmly asks Nor if he would be willing to hand the boy over to him without a fight. Rollo is apparently worth a lot of money, but only as a corpse, so since Nor obviously isn't going to just let him kill Rollo, the man strikes again. Nor is still having a hard time understanding why the man would want to kill Rollo, so the man explains that he could also bring Rollo back alive, but his client would still murder him anyway. So why go through all that trouble? If anything, he thinks he is doing Rollo a favor by ending his life quickly, but Nor still doesn't get what's going on. The man gives up on trying to explain things and tries to jump over Nor's head to strike Rollo, but Nor manages to keep up with him and knocks the assassin back, breaking his dagger in the process. Both Nor and the assassin are moving so fast that Lynn can barely keep track of them, so Ains tries to keep her close by to protect her in case they get caught in the crossfire. The assassin is starting to get really annoyed with how tough Nor is, so he pulls out some more daggers and attempts to strike at him multiple times, but Nor manages to defend against each and every one of those strikes and pushes him back against. He now sees Nor as a genuine obstacle to the success of his mission, so he is going to start seriously trying to kill him. He dashes forward at an insane speed and attempts to stab Nor in the face, but Nor once again manages to parry the attack, although it sends him flying backward. Once Nor regains his footing, he remarks that it is incredible that someone can generate that much force in a single strike with such a small knife. The assassin is surprised Nor was able to block a serious attack from him, and furthermore, he even shattered another one of the assassin's daggers, and the assassin thinks that he is really interesting. He pulls out another dagger and dashes in to attempt to overwhelm Nor, but despite his best efforts, Nor is still holding his ground. However, at this rate, Nor isn't going to be able to last much longer while protecting Rollo, as he can't keep up with the assassin's attacks based on instinct alone. The pressure from their fight is so intense that Inns had to put up a shield so that Lynn won't be in danger of getting caught in the chaos. It took a while, but she finally recognizes the assassin. His fashion sense matches up with the former S-rank adventurer, the deadman Zadu. A while ago, Inns walked into a meeting with all the sovereigns, and she was curious about some old documents she found. It's about a target that was declared to be officially dead, but she doesn't recall ever seeing anyone going to deal with this person. The sovereigns tell her that it's better to leave that mission alone and just declare the target dead, because actually going after him would be too much of a challenge. The target was Zadu, who became an S-rank adventurer at a young age, but his actions led him to become a wanted man. However, he is too strong for any of them to be willing to risk going after him, so they decided to just leave him alone as long as he is not causing trouble in the kingdom. Gilbert was interested to learn more about Zadu, since he is apparently strong enough to have the other sovereigns scared to fight him, so the wizard begins to explain the story of Zadu. As a child, Zadu had already mastered the art of dwarven alchemy, and by the age of 13, he had already killed his first dragon. After that, his abilities became known far across the lands, so much so that he became the apex of all heroes. However, while it sounds like Zadu was the perfect hero, he never had an Uncle Ben, so he began using his powers irresponsibly. For instance, he once murdered 36 members of a merchant family, and it's almost unheard of for an adventurer to kill ordinary people, so there was a motion to strip Zadu of his adventurer's license. However, while on the one hand he did kill a bunch of people, on the other hand, the dude could one-shot a dragon, so they weren't willing to risk making an enemy out of him. Ultimately, the matter of Zadu's punishment was postponed and he faced no repercussions. Zadu is someone who will accept any job, no matter how evil or depraved it may be. All he cares about is the money he gets paid. In fact, he once literally destroyed an entire country at the request of a client. He killed every member of their army, and then slaughtered the entire royal family. Therefore, in order to prevent any further casualties, the guild decided to pretend he has already been killed so that no one would risk attacking him again. Back with Xadu, he has just lost another dagger, and he is upset because he has almost used up his entire collection in this fight against Nohr. Nohr apologizes for ruining all of Xadu's daggers, but he says Xadu is partially to blame for attacking out of nowhere like this. Xadu says it's fine since he wasn't looking for an apology, but he still thinks it is really strange that his daggers keep breaking since they are all made of orichalcum and dragon tusk, and they should make it practically indestructible. Furthermore, he has a lot of questions about the sword Nohr is using because it is unlike anything he has ever seen before. He decides that it's better to play it safe for today, so he uses his trump card and throws his ultimate weapon into the air. As he does so, it begins to glow red, and in a flash of red light, Unlimited Blade Works has been activated. There are thousands of blades now all pointed straight at Nohr, and no matter how many of them Nohr manages to destroy, Xadu can always just make more of them. Nohr tries his best to parry all the crosses, but there are simply too many of them, so he is forced to let himself get stabbed in order to protect Rollo. Ins realizes that there are too many crosses being thrown at Nohr, so she wants to go help, but before she does, she stops herself because her mission is to ensure that Lyn makes it to safety, so she should leave Lyn's side for any reason. However, after giving it some more thought, she decides to go help Nohr after all. As Nohr continues to struggle against the barrage of countless crosses, he realizes he won't be able to counter the incoming attack, so he braces himself for the inevitable stabbing. However, to his surprise, In steps in at the last second and stops the crosses with her shield. Her mission may be to protect Lyn, but she also realizes that Nohr is far stronger than her, and by extension, having him around would greatly improve Lyn's chances of surviving any threats they come across, so she refuses to let him die here. She uses some of her shields to attack Xadu, and Nohr is really impressed, but while it's certainly keeping him busy, it doesn't look like any of her attacks are ever going to touch Xadu. Yuta's crosses are managing to evade In's attacks, so she asks Nohr if he can help her out a little. She can handle their defense for now, but she doesn't have the speed necessary to take down Xadu, which is why she needs Nohr to do it. Nohr isn't sure he can handle blades that are moving this fast, but then again, he has managed to hit birds that move faster than this, so he might be able to pull it off. He picks up one of the broken claws from the frog and tells Ins that he has an idea, so on his signal, he wants her to drop the shield that she put directly in front of him. Nohr gives the signal and Ins drops some of the shields to give him a clearing to attack. With a couple of dragon scales in his hand, Nohr activates his physical enhancement and stone throw abilities, and the combination basically turns his arm into an anti-aircraft missile launcher as the claw fragments destroy all the crosses headed their way. Nohr still has plenty of ammunition, so as he reloads, he asks Ins to drop the shield again, and he proceeds to destroy even more of Xadu's crosses. It looks like they are making steady progress against him, while she wasn't paying attention. Xadu sneaks up behind Ins and nearly stabs her straight in the eye. But at the last second, Nohr successfully parries the attack, breaking yet another one of Xadu's daggers. That attack looked like it was really close, but for Nohr, it was barely a challenge to block it. Xadu can't believe Nohr is able to react to his attacks that quickly, and that he managed to break a dagger made of adamantite. Nohr once again apologizes for destroying such a valuable dagger, but it's still Xadu's fault for attacking first. Xadu says he doesn't need an apology, but he needs to make up for all the money he lost on those destroyed daggers. He tries attacking Nohr again, but Nohr successfully blocks and breaks another dagger. Xadu asks Nohr how he keeps managing to see through all his attacks, but Nohr can't really explain his methods, he just kind of knows how to react. Xadu feels like there has to be some secret behind Nohr's power, but he will have to find out some other day, because for now he's done. After all the blades Nohr destroyed, Xadu is going to have to go through a lot of effort to recover the mithril needed to replace them all, and he doesn't want to lose any more blades, so he's going to give up on collecting the reward for Rollo. He was also going to head over to the kingdom, since he heard there's something interesting going on over there, but he put a hold on that as well. Ins asks him what he means by something interesting at the kingdom, but Xadu doesn't know the details, he just knows that it is going to be really extravagant. He calls over to Rollo and tells him that he is lucky Nohr is here, because no matter what kind of attack he tries, Nohr is always one step ahead of him. He even tries going for one last sneak attack, but predictably, Nohr blocks it with ease. Xadu won't be able to complete his mission while Nohr is around, so he takes a step back and just teleports away with his magic. Nor breathes a sigh of relief now that Xadu is gone, but Lin has some concerns about the event that is apparently taking place at the capital. Nor asks if she wants to head back to the capital, and then if she is so curious about what's going on. But as soon as he mentions the royal capital, Rollo starts to shiver in fear. Before he was tasked with transporting the Black Death Dragon, he heard his captors talking about how a terrifying monster was going to be sent to the capital. One that would make the Black Death Dragon look like a tiny frog. Hearing this, Lin says they need to hurry back to the capital immediately because the situation is more dire than she had initially thought it was. She asks Nor if he is willing to come with her back to the capital, and Nor is fine with it, but Eanes tells them that they can't go. She is about to tell Lin about the order she got from Rain, but Lin already knows about it. Rain had told her that she should escape with Lin if anything ever happened in the capital. Lin didn't hear it from him directly, but she knows how Rain thinks, so she is well aware of what he would want, but she can't accept the plan for her to be the only one to escape. That means the kingdom would still be in danger while she escaped, and she can't let something like that happen. This is the exact same thing that happened to the demon folk when their homeland was destroyed, so if Lin doesn't do anything now, it will surely suffer the same fate. Eanes eventually agrees to go back, but she wants Lin to promise not to leave her side. Rollo says he will go too since he feels partially responsible for the incident, so he wants to help resolve it. Nor pats Rollo on the head for being so responsible, and Lin notices the profound look on Nor's face, so she thinks he must be having a deep moment of self-reflection. But in reality, he is just regretting the fact that he never got to taste the poison frog. Back at the capital, the city lies in ruins, but thanks to the efforts of the 6 sovereigns, they have managed to hold their ground. The problem now is that Rain doesn't know where the next attack will be coming from. It could be from the north, the south, or maybe even above, but according to the reports, there have been no sightings of flying beasts nearby. That may be what the reports say, but Rain notices something up in the sky, so he casts an uncover spell, and to his horror, he finds a dragon looming over the city. And it's not just any dragon either, it's a dragon of calamity. This was the end of episode 7. Subscribe to not miss the next part.